Everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. Today we're going to do our daily technical analysis update of commodities. We're going to work our way through the dollar, yields, precious metals, and commodities and ETFs that I follow. I'm going to give you my financial opinions. And if you guys need any help with anything, check out finding-value.com, join our community. We have a 50% discount code that is going to end today. I can extend it if you guys want. September is the coupon code. So if you want to join, we do have a 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time question and answer session that we've got coming up tomorrow. I do tape them and I do put them on the website if you want to view them at a later time or view our older ones to see just how good some of these picks have been. So let's dive in here. Let's see what's going on with the markets. We got the DXY. The DXY heading on higher here, moving on up. That still looks good to continue. I don't see any reversal candlesticks here, just a small little, I call it a bloody nose day. It's a tall guy with a little small profit-taking day, which is generally a continuation pattern to the upside. The 2-year remaining resilient here with yields. And I'm really checking to see if we're going to break the top here. Now, if we start to break out of, you can kind of draw a guy through here, you can do that, but you can also draw one kind of just on the tops here. Are we going to break this and move on up? Now, if we do, we could see a vast move to the upside for yields there. And there's that squeezing up of the 2-year. So that is something we're watching. We did have a little bit of selling pressure here, but it doesn't seem to have impacted it too much. And we very well could break to the upside in yields, which means dollar strength, yield strength, perhaps. The 10-year is also being quite resilient here. And are we going to break out of this high here? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and find out and see if we're going to rip to the upside. And there's your pattern there, the squeezing up against that resistance. We very well could break here, guys. So that means higher yields are going to continue, perhaps, if it does break. TYX is also being quite resilient. It continues to hold on here. It's not a huge run up at this resistance level. You know, we have a sideways momentum day today, but we are playing with, you know, what would be 52-week highs. So again, let's watch it. Let's see what happens with yields. TYX TNX ratio, we're up against this support level. And that support level is most likely going to hold. Are we going to come back or are we going to break out of this support resistance level? We kind of jumped above it yesterday, so I'm calling it a support level. It could be a resistance level, depending how you look at it. But generally speaking, if I were to throw up, you know, this chart here, I'd throw up gold against it. And remember, this relationship can break. It doesn't mean it has to remain together. The relationship can break. We are at a very low period. Whenever this goes up, that generally means that gold follows with it for most of history in the last 40 years in a declining interest rate environment. We are in a new interest rate environment where we're increasing on interest rates. Just to show you guys long-term, this is the different interest rate environment. And this interest rate environment, gold went up with. This interest rate environment, whenever the yields fell, gold would go up to some extent when the curve would uninvert. But we are in a new paradigm on this side over here. We've broken that downtrend. So we could see gold de-link itself from that relationship. So keep that in mind. Bond prices continue to fall with those yields going up. We are in a heavy support area, and it just doesn't matter, it looks like. We're continuing to fall into that heavy support. So it looks like they're just flooding the market with bonds. Let's flood this thing, baby. Gold, surprisingly, with that higher, well, flat dollar and higher yields, it's holding in there today, up 11.4. So I would really like to see this relationship break down and we go up with yields. That would be a pretty fun one for gold, but we haven't seen that in the last 40 years. Silver ripping it up 1.18%. That is a bullish engulfing pattern. We did put a nice big candlestick, which is a hammer candlestick, in yesterday. We are also at a trend line, support line, right underneath us. So we'll see if we can get a bounce here, and if we head on higher, we'll see what yields do. Everything is kind of squeezing up or hasn't broken these large patterns yet. Even copper, and I'll show you that later. Platinum up quite strong today, up 21 bucks roughly. Nice good candlestick there too. So we came on down, we put in a little bottom, and then we popped off that little bottoming pattern in platinum. That looks good. XAU to gold ratio. Now this is really important, guys. There is people positioning in the gold and silver mining stocks. We've broken out of this downtrend line. It's starting to come higher. It is outperforming gold, even though we've got interest rates going up. So we are seeing a relationship. And if I were to state this, the past 40 years, the TYX TNX ratio was kind of that indicator. The curve uninverting would drive gold higher. We're starting to see people position in XAU over gold, even though the rates are still increasing. So the question is, are rates going to increase in the relationship of that TYX TNX ratio to gold break down? Or are people front running into gold and silver mining companies in gold before rates decline? I don't know what the answer is there. And that's what we're going to have to wait and see and find out. Are people positioning in gold because rates are going to go down, or are rates, the relationship breaking? The CRB index slightly lower, but this still looks fantastic to continue higher. Not much saying there. It's basically just a little bloody nose. CRB to S&P 500. Now this is big here, guys. This is big because this relationship is accelerating. Commodities are up and the stock markets are down today. So we've got a nice big move in the ratio of commodities versus the SPX. And this, to me, looks like this is going to continue higher. It looks very strong for an outperformance of commodities. Now, commodities will probably go up, and the S&P 500 will go sideways to lower, is my guess. That's been my guess, and I'm sticking to that paradigm. Looking at GDX, those companies are right at resistance. That big resistance line, the blue line going across. We've used that for support. We've used it as resistance. I think if we can see, we'll see how this dynamic plays out. I don't want to say anything. There's strength in GDX, there's strength in GDXJ, and there is strength today in SILJ across the board. So people are moving money into these assets here. Crude oil up 1.08%. We are now at 91.13 on the futures pricing. Very strong. It's actually not a bad candlestick either. Nat gas down a little bit, 2.17. I do think that we could see a pullback in some of the equities this fall, which we generally get before a potential punch higher. So we're seeing positioning in gold and silver equities and gold and silver. And I think that we're seeing a little bit of a selling pressure over here in the oil equities. So we're seeing a little bit of selling pressure here. We're on support. And is this going to be a little bit more sustaining, or are we just going to sit here on support for a little bit? Don't know that answer yet. But crude oil itself looks very strong. Nat gas, we could see a little bit of weakness before we head on higher, and that may impact some of the natural gas companies a little bit more so than the oil companies. So we're up against support on that neckline of the inverted head and shoulders. OIH also getting a little bit of selling pressure today, but it's nothing big. Nothing big. We got big selling pressure here. That is a bearish engulfing, but the selling pressure is not continuing. Now, if oil were to pull back, we could see a bigger pullback in XOP and OIH. So again, some of these market players, they'll possible to push crude oil while they unload equities onto the market. But again, we'll see what happens over the next few weeks. I think there'll be a lot more clarity with breakouts in some of these patterns, like the TYX, TNX ratio, precious metals squeezing up, copper squeezing up, etc., etc. Sprott Physical Uranium Trust still forging its way to the upside. We are getting a little bit of selling pressure. These aren't closing at their highs. You can see we're kind of coming up, coming up. But this could also be a continuation pattern where you hit your head on a certain resistance level, and then you bring that lower end of this guy up, and we eventually break to the upside. So this is on a very short-term time frame. So we'll see what happens. And again, on the short term, anything can happen, guys. But it looks like it's consolidating in this, and we could break that to the upside at some point. I'm not stating that that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying that's what could happen. URA up a little bit today. We came out of the starting blocks pretty quick here. We did reverse over the day. You can see how we reversed here. We came up out of the blocks real hard, and then we kind of consolidated back down. It doesn't look too bad. It looks like we are just kind of moving sideways, kind of a flag pattern. So again, we'll see in the short term what happens here. I'm not going to do anything with my shares, just going to ride it and hold it. And even if we get a little bit of a pullback, not a big deal to me. Uranium also being quite strong. We are getting these wicks at the top. There is a little bit of selling pressure up here. URNJ, same thing, a little bit of selling pressure up there. So again, some of these patterns here, what they do is they break out, they may consolidate, and then they kind of just grind higher for a long period of time. I'm not stating that's what's going to happen to uranium. Uranium's historically has had just ridiculous moves. So I'm not going to do anything like that. I'm just going to hold it, ride it, let this thing carry me forward if that's where it's going to go. TAN looks like it's trying to put in a bottom here. It's trying to turn. It's close to support level, and it's doing roughly the same thing as over here. COPX, we are up a little bit, but still within the channel. And we are on top of a big double bottom there. We broke out, did a little retest, and we're still above all that. Lithium down a little bit today. Again, I don't think it looks too bad, but we're still within the falling wedge. We just got to break out of it. REMX doing the same thing, down a little bit, but still within the falling wedge. A little bit of a falling wedge there. The S&P 500, this looks pretty crappy, guys. I mean, we've got the big bearish engulfing here, even though it kind of broke out. It begrudgingly broke out. We've got a bearish engulfing here. We've got another kind of bearish candlestick that ended quite low here. This is looking interesting. There's a lot of selling pressure for this, and I'm curious to see if we roll back over and head lower here. We can also kind of put in a pattern that might, kind of a trend line here that we've broken to the downside. So I think there could be further downside here. NASDAQ is the same way. You kind of look at this. There's not much buying pressure here. We're starting to see some of these bigger selling candlesticks. There's one here. There's one here. And then it's starting to show up with this one that we broke into the downside of the upward trend line. So I think things could head a little bit lower here in the short term. Emerging markets holding on. It's just moving sideways in a holding pattern, waiting for the dollar to drop, and that might take some time. XHB, more selling pressure here, guys, and we got a little bit of a wick. So there is some buying pressure here. You can see those wicks that I cut off, these 3 wicks. There is support there, and we'll see if that support holds. But, we're getting some selling pressure here with these big red candlesticks here, like someone is selling their shares, which could bring the overall index down. We are at resistance up here too, so let's see what happens. We very well could pull back here again if it wants to. Moo selling off a little bit, but still above support. I think that still looks good to head higher based off what this pattern looks like and that we're sitting on top of support and patterns. We've got copper. Now, copper is still in this pattern amazingly. It's just going straight to the tip, guys. And you know what happens when you play the game just the tip. I mean, I mean, it's right there at the tip, guys. This thing's it's gonna bust out here. So let's watch it. Let's see for a potential break to the upside. I think a lot of the diversified mining companies look pretty good. Iron ore is already broken out. Um, the shipping Baltic Dry Index looks good, and even steel looks pretty good. So I'm biased that this is going to break to the upside for copper, based off of all the other base metals kind of breaking their patterns to the upside. Here's iron ore. This is already broken to the upside. This thing looks fantastic to run. So iron ore looks fantastic. Nickel looks like we're getting finally a little bit of buying pressure through here. But again, I'm not convinced yet. We still have downward momentum. We need to get more buying pressure in here. Aluminum down a little bit. And we are, man, this is a tough read. We've got resistance here and we've got support here. Let's wait next week and see what happens. That's what I'm going to say with that. Baltic Dry Index looking good. I think we're probably going to see a big move to the upside. It can grind higher. I'm not saying it's going to be a straight line, but it looks good. Newcastle coal also going up 2.88%. Looks good in this general location, along with a lot of the other energy areas. And then we've got Bitcoin, a little bit of weakness in Bitcoin today, and Ethereum, which basically has the same chart. And again, we'll see what happens here. There's a lot of selling pressure days all through here. And I would say that it's favoring to the downside still, is my guess, based off of the candlesticks and what they look like. Generally, what you see in an upward trend move are large green candlesticks like this with small selling pressure until it hit this point here. Now it's all big red candlesticks and smaller green candlesticks. It looks like it's getting bearish as time goes on. So that's what I've got for today, guys. Give me a thumb up for the content. Subscribe to the channel. Everything kind of looks the same as all the other days. Uranium still looks strong. I would say energy in general looks strong. We're seeing a little bit of selling pressure in some of the energy ETFs. So that's something we are seeing. We're seeing gold kind of firm up, even though it's firming up in the face of what would normally be pretty stiff headwinds. So is there money rotation going on right now where we see a bigger pullback in the market? Because we are seeing weakness in the S&P 500, in the NASDAQ breaking those trend lines to the downside. Maybe that's why people are buying gold and silver and the gold and silver mining companies. Maybe they think yields are going to roll over here with that weakness that we just saw in the stock market. Maybe Bitcoin is weakening that we're seeing in the charts and that a larger pullback could be coming. That all very well could be the case. Maybe we have stagflation where these things start to break apart, commodities start to outperform, hence the commodity to stock ratio going up, and we're going to see a divergence between commodities and the overall market. Potentially could be the case, which would be a stagflationary environment. But that's what I'm seeing in the charts. If you guys have questions, we can go over a bunch of different individual companies. I've got a lot of pretty good setups that I'd like to show you guys tomorrow at the 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time question and answer session. All right, guys, we'll catch you later. This is Finding Value.